1935, the Lions win the NFL championship. The Detroit Tigers take the World Series. The Red Wings bring home Lord Stanley's Cup. Joe Louis begins his rise to world domination. This transforms the Motor City into Detroit, City of Champions.
We're back to the crack of the bat. It is Detroit City of Champions, the podcast. I'm Jamie Flanagan.
Charles Avison.
And we are working our way through the 33 championships of 1935, all here in the city of Detroit. I just love this story. Love sharing it with you, Charles. And we're up to where are we at today? This is we're hitting today.
What number?
We're at the softball.
Yeah, we're at the softball champions.
Dixie Oils.
So it's number 18 in the as far as like minor championships.
Right.
Plus the three majors,
right,
plus the Detroit Olympics. So we're at 22. So we got 11 more after this as far as like minor champions.
So I was doing a little Googling myself, trying to find, again, always trying to sleuth out some stuff.
Yeah, I always love when you find stuff, man, because I have my ways of finding stuff, and you have your. You find stuff
but
too.
This was a men's team.
Yeah,
this was the men's Dixie Oil Championship of 1935. There was a women's Dixie Oils team.
I had no idea.
In the 30s.
You had a picture on the screen. I was squinting to try to see.
The University of Michigan has a really great photo archive, and my search led me to a couple images of the ladies' team. This one from 1932.
That's awesome.
These were the 32 Oils, and I think the next one is from 34.
Do they have the patch on their jersey? The one, because I have a patch. I sent you a patch picture of the Oils.
And that's yep. And then the guy is wearing a sweater.
I'm going to take this off. I want to see it real quick.
And then they're so, if people listening to the podcast, the audio version, it's so very, very much League of Their Own uniforms. It
totally is. It's a great
total
shot.
League of Their Own
It's a very cool shot.
uniform. And this other photo wasn't dated. It's a different year. It's a little crisper picture and a different patch. But it was a Dixie Oil ladies softball.
Well, that's the patch that we have on our slideshow. I sent you.
All right.
It's the same logo.
Then, so there you go. So I thought I found pictures. I found pictures of the team.
Yeah.
And I go, no, apparently not, because it was the men's team that won.
Yeah, because you're like, I got this picture up on the screen. I'm like, that's a women's team. And you're like, they're a women's team. I was like, holy, I've never seen that one. I didn't even know that.
So, but the Dixie Oils, we're going to start talking about the teams, but I figured we'd softball get a little of the history, because softball has a quirky history.
Well, it's another example why we love doing this show and why we like talking about these champions, and why it's like one of the core loves I have of this story is, again, when I first came across this, it was because I was looking into the Tigers. I didn't even know what year the first Tigers World Series championship was. Yeah. And so it was like, kind of like that. It's like a beacon. It's like a lighthouse in the fog. You know what I mean? Like, I was attracted to the year because I saw that lighthouse, which was the 35 Tigers. But as soon as you get up next to it, you see this city all around it, and you're like, you know what I mean? You're drawn to the story because of one thing, and there's so many other, facts and figures and fascinating things that you're drawn to all these other elements. You know what I mean? It's like it's the one thing that brings you in, but it's all these other things that makes you want to stay and look around. And so,
so softball, you wanted to give you.
So the thing is, what I'm going with it is that, like, when you think about softball, you're thinking about, like, you think some people might think about the fast pitch softball,
sure, yep.
But you think about, you think that it's a modern day thing, that it's like exclusive. Like, to me, when I was looking at this, I had no idea that they had softball in the 1930s, or that it would be a major thing. It was a major big deal back then.
Oh yeah.
And so, it was basically it was almost like a independent independent baseball leagues. I mean, they were huge.
It stemmed back, so it's interesting because it wasn't a branch of baseball. This is coming off of flowsoftball.com is where I'm getting this history from, and it'll be linked down in the description. But the Farragut Boat Club in Chicago, Illinois, back in 1887. A crowd of people were gathered at the Farragut Boat Club for the results of the Harvard-Yale football game. And back then, there wasn't, TV, even radio. There wasn't even radio. People were waiting for, news wires and telegrams and messages to come in. And so they were all gathered at the boat club awaiting the news of the results of the Harvard-Yale football game. So it was just word of mouth is how they got the information. The results came in, and it was a 17-8 Yale victory. So one ecstatic Yale fan threw an old boxing glove at a Harvard fan who responded by swinging at the glove with a broomstick he was holding. And that was the invention of softball. So looking on with interest, a reporter by the name of George Hancock suggested they play a game of indoor baseball with the boxing glove and the broomstick. He tied together the strings and the pair to make this ball, and they drew a chalk home plate and mound and bases, and it ended up with a final score of 41-40.
Dang, that's awesome.
So thus
that's a softball,
new sport.
too. It's a softball.
Yep. The sport was invented in the spring. Hancock, that reporter, introduced the game to the outdoors, calling it indoor-outdoor. The sport was played on a smaller diamond than traditional baseball fields, and he amended 19 rules, and they were adopted by the Midwinter Indoor Baseball League in Chicago in 1889. Firefighters spread the game. The new sport of indoor-outdoor baseball had begun to spread and catch attention of many Americans in the 19th century, but it really took off when the Minneapolis Fire Department got a hold of a game. They started doing games, and they wanted to keep the firemen fit in their off times, so they would do this softball to keep
especially
the
indoors when it's like snowing out or whatever, raining out. That's fascinating.
So they tweaked the game in a few ways. The pitcher's mound was 35 feet away from home plate. A smaller sized medicine ball they played with. Overnight, you had fire departments all over the state joining the sport and competing with one another. It took many names over the years. In 1895, named it he had a team named the Kittens. The firefighters had a team named the Kittens. And it was kitten ball until 1926. It used to be kitten ball, playground ball, diamond ball, pumpkin ball, recreational ball, twilight ball, army ball, mush ball. That's the one I like. Mush ball.
Yeah, that's a good name.
And ball and night ball. But in 1926, Walter Hankson, a YMCA official in Denver, coined the term softball. By 1930, that officially became recognized as the name of the sport. And then in the 1930s, which leads us to where our story kicks in, nationwide teams forming all over and competing with each other. In 33, a pair of men from Chicago, Leo Fisher and Michael Pauley, decided to host a massive tournament at the World's Fair in Chicago. And their ideas were to have teams meet up and compete and just have fun. 55 teams divided into 3 groups at the Chicago's World Fair in 1933. So that was pretty much fun, which led to a standard set of rules and a national authority for the sport. And so that's kind of the history of softball.
I didn't even know until this very moment that it even went back to the 1880s like that. That's interesting.
So it was just on a lark, on a goof. Somebody threw somebody at something at a bar.
What a great beginning.
And a sport was born.
That's awesome, man.
So,
that's a great story. I'm glad you found that, man. That's great.
Like I said,
that deep.
There's more information. There's a couple different There's the history of softball on athleticsscholarships.com, and then women's history on nfca.org. I'll link all those in the descriptions so people can dive deep into softball if they want.
Yeah, no, and of course it's a raging sport today. It's a huge sport today.
Yeah.
So you left off right about 33. This is it's right where this sort of picks up right now.
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm just going to read you the quote.
You had 2 different things lined up. You had the testimony of the city of Detroit.
Well, there's a couple different articles I have because I have 2 different things to share. I have one which is it's just a quote right out of the Champions Day.
Okay.
There's a really a couple big Champions Day articles that came out, and one of them the photo we have of the Dixie Oils team, that's of course right off of that City of the Champions Day Champions Day newspaper. I'm sorry, the City of Champions newspaper.
Right.
The one with all the photo, the player photos.
Yeah.
So this is directly off of that main sheet. They're up in the top right hand corner, just underneath Constance O'Donovan, and to the left. of
there it
Pulitzer.
is. Yeah.
So they made it onto the City of Champions paper, which is anybody on there is
they're on there.
That's royal.
That's the real deal.
That's City of Champions royalty on there.
That's the real deal in that group.
Yeah. So I've got the two articles I have to share. One is just kind of an overall, just them. It is the Detroit News article. John E. McManus just kind of going through what they did. And then I have another article where I was lucky enough that when I put the first book out, I had a email back from a man named Joseph Durkowski, who I forget. He's related to one of them. His father-in-law was on the Dixie Oils.
Oh, neat.
And so he wrote me a letter that talks about more specifics with the team. And so I'm going to read those two things.
Sure.
And so without any further ado.
Yeah. Tell me about the Dixie Oils.
Yeah, so this is the article. Again, this is Detroit News. This came out December 22nd, 1935. And so, again, by John E. McManus. And so he says, in a sport in which pitching is supreme, the four Detroit pitchers, William Dombrowski, Dick Zimmerman, Popeye Novak, and Ralph Cook, showed themselves masters of the art, striking out 119 during the series, an average of 19 a game. And by series, he is talking about what they won was it was like a huge 40-team championship spread. What was it? It was in September 1935. It was in St. Louis. And the trophy that they won was the George H. Sisler Trophy, and that trophy is named after George Sisler, who is like he's a baseball Hall of Famer. Who after his career was over, he was a star in the early 1900s, one of the best hitters of the early 1900s. And after his career was over, he was the one that founded like one of the main softball leagues or whatever, which ended up becoming merging with the existing leagues and becoming such and such. He may have been the guy that helped found that at the founded that league at the World's Fair, because he was involved with it all the way since 32 or whatever. Okay. So he may have been the one that started, because the trophy in which they played for was the George Sisler Trophy. And I actually have a picture. I found some pictures of that's a couple different views of the George Sisler Trophy. So we have a picture of that. So anyways, the championship was in St. Louis. Let me see. I got a little information here on it, a little bit more than just saying maybe. And let's see it. So where is it at? And it was in St. Louis, and 1935. But I know I have something here with them. It says here it is. It says so they won right about the time that the Tigers were clinching their 35 the pennant to go to the World Series. It was September 1935. It was a national softball tournament in St. Louis. So in that 6-game tournament, so this is where we pick up. So a 6-game tournament. So this is back to what he was saying, because I just want to give a little bit of context as where this all happened. So again, in a sport in which pitching is supreme, the four Detroit pitchers, William Dombrowski, Dick Zimmerman, Popeye Novak, and Ralph Cook, showed themselves masters of the art, striking out 119 during the series, an average of 19 a game. Their efforts were ably seconded by the other members of the team, Raleigh Deschain and Milton Ludwig, catchers Spike Waltz, John Clancy, and Bill Stove. Frank Shields and William McCone, which is the father-in-law, Wallace McCone, this is the father-in-law of the guy who this article we're about to read.
Okay.
Outfielders, this is tongue twisted here. So, okay. Their efforts were ably seconded by the other members of their team, Raleigh Deschain and Milton Ludwig. Catchers, Spike Waltz, John Clancy, Bill Slove, Frank Shields, and Wallace McCone. Outfielders, and Charles Bardis, Andy Jacobs, S. Spudzinski, and Arthur Mueller. Infielders. Ray Kraut is the manager of the team. Teams from all parts of the United States were entered, but the Dixie Oils, by the expedient of allowing their opponents very few hits and no runs, won all 6 games in the title series and returned home with the George H. Sisler Trophy, emblematic of championship of the United States.
All right.
Detroit News, December 22nd, 1935.
I love that there's a guy named Popeye.
Yeah. Oh,
and then there's it was Spuds. What was it?
Spudzinski.
Spudzinski.
Yeah. I have a feeling they just called him Spuds.
I'm thinking at some point in his life, that cat's being called Spuds.
Yeah, it's the most natural nickname evolution probably ever.
Hey, Spudzinski.
Yeah, yeah. So I have a feeling that he was shortened to Spuds. Yeah, as well. So so Wallace McComb was an outfielder, and so that's where the article where this gentleman, his name is Joseph Durkowski. This was an email I received on April 9th, 2013.
Okay.
And so his this is the story he had to tell. So my father-in-law, Walter McCone, which is they spelled as, so he says Walter, and there they call him Wallace in the article. He's I would assume that this is closer to the truth, Walter, unless Wallace was the nickname in the newspaper. But
sure.
So my father-in-law, Walter McCone, played for the Dixie Oil softball team. He kept in contact over the year, and especially with Bill Slove and Stan Pinochle Spudzinski. So he wasn't called Spuds. They called him Pinochle. We both were wrong, and I was about to read the article and forgot about that. So they called him Pinochle Spudzinski.
Pinochle.
So they're like, we're not going to shorten Spudzinski to Spuds.
We're gonna make it Pinochle because that's convenient.
So my father-in-law, Walter McComb, played for the Dixie Oil softball team. He kept in contact over the years, especially with Bill Slove and Stan Pinochle Spudzinski, and reminisced often about the feats of Popeye Novak. Popeye went on to pitch for Briggs Beauty Wear in the 1940s. The Beauties were a deluxe travel team who played against the best around the country post-war. What made softball worthwhile for all these guys was jobs, particularly in the Depression years. Lots of local businesses like Dixie sponsored teams for advertising purposes, and they all wanted them to improve in order to play in the higher level leagues. They all had scouts of a sort. Walter talked about being approached by these guys, who said, "If you need a job, show up at our employment office at such and such time and wear that bright red jacket you have on. You'd find yourself in a big room with a couple hundred applicants, and some guy would come out and say, 'Hey, you in the red jacket, come on in.' And you found that you had a job in a new team where the rest of the men went home." Walter went on to eventually become a pitcher himself, acquiring the name Windmill because of his delivery style. So
Pinochle, Windmill, no Spuds.
Yes, no, the Spuds was not the nickname. Yeah, so we were both incorrect, even though that is the most
I'm
natural.
calling them Spuds. I'm gonna time travel. I'm gonna figure it out.
But that's too obvious, James.
I'm gonna time travel.
Too obvious. It's such an
I'm
obvious.
gonna hang out with him, and I'm gonna call him Spuds.
But it's such an obvious nickname, you almost can't do it. They had to go with
totally
something completely against the grain.
Hey, Pinochle.
Pinochle isn't even. Spudzinski is the same amount of effort and time as Pinochle. It's not really. It's not like a nickname that's short for anything.
He must have just been a monster at the game.
Yeah,
just taking people's pennies from them at the Pinochle. All right.
But the interesting element of it is that he's talking about in a very similar fashion as Glenn Presnell was talking about with the Portsmouth Spartans in the NFL, which was about jobs.
Yeah.
And here in the middle of the Great Depression, that's what this is the world that these people are inhabiting. And so the Dixie Oils, this was a gasoline company, gasoline distributor. These are, these are
Those are good jobs.
These are good jobs, and so what it is these companies kind of like they're sponsoring their own baseball teams in essence, and these are competitive leagues. And so I have a list here of some of the other. I thought I had a list. Let me see. I have a list here somewhere. There's a list. Yeah, here. I have a list of some of the other Detroit teams.
This would be a good time to thank our sponsors.
Yeah, go ahead.
Wearingfunny.com.
Yes,
and actually, the Detroit City Distillery.
Yeah, we'll give them a shout. We're drinking their bourbon.
Yeah, they're if you crossing over with the Man Cave Happy Hour, we just did an episode with Garrett from Detroit City Distillery, and we're gonna go experience their experience. And hold on to your hat because we're 2 years away from the 90th anniversary of the City of Champions Day. Yeah. So 2 years, that's a nice amount of time to have some whiskey in a barrel and release it for a special occasion. I'm just saying.
That's a great
I'm just kind of alluding to something here. in the works. So anyway,
What's the type I'm drinking?
That's you're drinking the 4 grain.
Yeah, I love this stuff's great.
4 grain. That's got a little bit more of wheat. It's got some wheat in it, and some rye. And then this is the butcher's cut. I'm doing the butcher's cut, which is kind of their mainstay.
I'm gonna do the butcher's cut next.
Yeah. But so thanks to our sponsors. But there were a lot of sponsors. So Dixie Oil.
We like being sponsored by liquor companies. That's our favorite sponsor.
It keeps the studio lubricated.
Yeah.
But who are the other sponsors there?
So you're gonna love this. You're gonna love this. So a few examples of the team names.
Chico's Bail Bonds.
Not as well. I would like to think it's as cool as that. So I got this information from there was a. So it was reported. So I have it in my text here. August 26, 1934, the Detroit Times. There was an article in the Detroit Times on August 26, 1934 that said that 15,000 fans showed up to watch a Detroit Times sponsored tournament at Mack Park, in which 40 teams competed from around the city. And so it was what I did was I put those team names into softball. Yeah.
All right.
So I wrote down the team names, to give an idea of the teams that competed, right?
Yeah,
so the different companies that were involved in this. So you had Standard Oil, you had Better Made, Warner Plumbing, Schmidt's Famous, Hudson Stores, Alger Juniors. Do you recognize any of these? Tivoli.
I'm praying for Miley and Miley Shrimp Shack.
I'm not seeing them. But,
damn it.
So Tivoli, which is famous. I think they had a bowling team too. Cant Coal, Temple Baptist, Thompson Products, Beals Drugs, Central Creamery, Briggs, H.F. Thon Company, Pearl Foam, St. John Cantius, Ferndale Dems. The Detroit Red Wings had a team, and of course the Dixie Oil Gasoline.
Wow.
So there's
no Singleton Cleaners?
I didn't see them. But you can see the range of you had Better Made,
Better Made. I'm telling you, there's that Channel 62. And when I was growing up, there was the New Dance Show, the scene, and the New Dance Show, and those were two of the sponsors. There it was Singleton Cleaners, and then Miley and Miley Shrimp Shack. Those were always
would be awesome
big advertisers on there.
It would be way cooler if they did have a team on here.
Singleton Cleaners, and the guy's like complaining about his bad cleaners, and the guy's like, you down? He goes, yeah, but I wish my sleeves was, because he shrunk his shirt and his sleeves were too short. So it's my favorite.
Well, Hudson's had a team, that's freaking awesome. Ferndale Dems, I think is that like Ferndale Democratic Party?
Yeah. And then
you had all these different.
Briggs was sponsoring.
Briggs in 34 is a little bit before. I think Walter Briggs may have been part owner of the Tigers by then, but Briggs is an auto body company.
Yeah.
And so you had, but that's what I mean. Like these are who's who of Detroit, companies at the time, And so they're, every self-respecting company's got to have their team. And of course, if you're gonna have a team, you don't want them to be garbage. You want them to be winning tournaments. It's really just another way of advertising because you can get a similar bang for your buck because. The papers are going to say, Better Made softball team wins championship or tournament or whatever. That's free advertising for your company. You're like, Better Made won it, and they get to brag about it in their company advertising and stuff, So it's just cool, man. It's kind of like a throwback to one of my favorite like elements of the 30s and of Detroit at this time,
right? Which
is this sense of community, this sense of like that you've got these different companies that are all like. Competing on the softball field, as part of a competition in which
these companies are just trying to stay alive.
Yeah,
like restaurants through the pandemic. Yeah. It's like businesses through the depression, just doing anything they can to stay alive.
Yeah, but where's sort of an example of this kind of thing like today? Like in Detroit, anyways. Like where's all these different companies, trying to compete like on a sporting event and sponsoring the different little teams. Towards like where it's like different companies competing against each other.
There's like probably 5 big companies that sponsor pretty much everything, kind of soak it up.
Yeah, but the thing about it is that they're just saturated advertisement. They're not like this where where they're sponsoring a team on the field of competition, and then it's almost like an arms race where they're all like trying to accumulate the best players so that their team so that their advertising that's substantive and advertising.
I'm trying to think if DCFC has what they got, or like the bowling leagues.
Yeah, but again,
and then, all your bowling leagues have sponsors.
But again, those are your standard sponsorships where they're like the Detroit FC. They're like, and it's not taking anything away from it. It's just a difference, But it's like, hey, we're sponsored by these 8 different companies.
Right,
That's
right.
great. But a closer example would be is if there was 8 different soccer teams and each was sponsored by a different Detroit company, and the teams were named after those teams, and they were competing, and the winner would their team names would stand out in the advertising is because their company won that tournament. That's what that would be instead of all 8 sponsoring one team and hoping they win. This is where the team, it's almost like the companies themselves are competing, even though they're across different industries. They're competing on the same field of competition, which is it's an interesting community kind of forges the community, saying these are, you've got a potato chip company versus Hudson's for the championship. Better Made versus Hudson's. I mean,
Chris was asking, Better Made was around back then, back in 1935.
Yeah, apparently so. But could you imagine though how interesting that would be today? Is if you had something like this, right? And imagine, or just imagine. Other than saying imagine this today, because I think that's obvious. But what I'm saying is imagine like like a poster or something that could be made from this saying Better Made versus Hudson's for Detroit softball championship. 2 iconic brands. You know what I mean? Battling it out just think about how interesting just the 2 companies just battling it out, just that just the advertising for that is
right.
You've got a potato chip company versus a shopping an iconic shopping store.
All right, so Better Made chips, whatever preceded in 1930, 2 entrepreneurial Detroiters, Sicilian immigrants, Cross Mosheri and Peter Cipriano, became partners in a potato chip business first known as Cross and Peter's Company. Their Better Made chip brand was established in 1934. So this was like they're trying to get their name out. Brand new company. They were playing off the name of Best Made. So there you go.
Yeah.
So that comes off of the Detroit Historical Society.
Better Made. Okay, cool.
Yeah, that's
what's Schmidt's famous? Why does I feel it's like a chicken company or something? What is Schmidt's famous?
I don't know.
Schmidt's, is that a beer or something, or maybe I don't want to say chicken because I'm thinking Lee's famous recipe or something. But anyways, like to say, like that's some community thing,
Yes.
where you've got these different companies and they're waging for supremacy. They're all different industries.
The closest thing right now is like bowling leagues, or like Chris mentioned, Little League. Chico's Bail Bonds.
Exactly. Like
I just want to keep saying that.
Well, no, that's like the greatest company ever. That's like the greatest sponsorship.
The best.
Yeah, that's iconic. I mean, they actually have baseball cards made with those players on there with the Chico.
Oh my
Bail
God,
Bonds.
I love that.
But anyways, so that was the idea, was that these teams, these were, the Dixie Oils were great. They went all the way to the championship that year, won the national championship.
The ladies did well too, because there said something. I thought I was on track with the ladies teams.
Yeah,
and because I was looking up 1935 championship softball. Dixie Oils, and these were the images that came up for me.
Well, I do want to mention one other thing too, is when I was actually looking at the softball association,
the 2 ladies,
they had a list on the 30. It was on the 35 softball championships. It was like the National Softball Association, or whatever, like the main site.
Yeah,
and they had a list of all their all their national championship winners. In 35, they didn't have the Dixie Oils listed. They had some other team.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that makes no sense, because why would I've got the original articles
and
here.
They're on the
front page of the friggin' newspaper. You don't think they're going to be putting them on the front page and go, "Well, yeah, we made a mistake." I mean, they got
did their fact checking.
They've got the story of them winning and everything. So that's what I'm saying is anybody that is,
there's a mystery afoot.
Well, I'm just saying it happened a long time ago.
Right.
So
yeah.
So, so if anybody looks into it, I'm
email
like,
you got from the son,
research.
the son-in-law was confirming that, my dad was part of that championship team.
Yeah, but the other thing too, again, is that you've got a Detroit News article, and you've also got a Detroit Free Press, newspaper. So 2 different newspapers, confirming that they were the 1935 champions in that year. And I may add a third here if they if the Detroit Times mentions it too, because if that means you got all 3 newspapers recognizing them as the champions. But anyways, at the very least, you got 2 different newspapers both confirming in 35 that they won the championship in St. Louis in 35. So I'm not sure what's going on with those records, but we'll stand by our research. So. But anyways, so that's what I'm saying. I think it's an interesting era. And one of the other things that's kind of cool too is that, they had a thing back then called sandlot baseball, where it's just, kids playing baseball all over the place. And it's just worth mentioning too, is that in we all look at Hank Greenberg today as like this, like superstar slugger, MVP, did all these things, Hall of Fame, all this. But Hank Greenberg, 34 was his first full-time year. 35, he was an MVP. But in 33, sort of the year prior to him his breakout in 34, in 33, he was just he was a second string. He wasn't even a starting first baseman, and he couldn't even get in the game. In fact, he went into Frank Navin's office and said, "If you're not going to play me, trade me.
Oh wow,
cut me loose," because he couldn't even get on the field. The Tigers had signed this they'd signed this free agent first baseman. I think his name was McManus. And they'd signed this first baseman who was like an all glove, no hit first baseman. And Greenberg was the opposite. He was all hit, no glove. He could have barely even field. And so so what was interesting is that Hank Greenberg went and played on Belle Isle with a lot of these like sandlot teams. Okay. So you can imagine it wouldn't be that far of a, because the biggest thing he was trying to, he's trying to stay sharp, of course, but the biggest thing he was trying to work on was his defense, because as I mentioned, his defense was absolutely atrocious when he first started out. He was absolutely horrendous at defense. And so it's not that hard to imagine that he would have, just looking to get into games wherever he could, whether it was, sandlot or softball or whatever, that he would have been getting on the field just to, get reps in. So,
all right, another nugget about the history of softball. It's the ball that they use. So that original ball of the tied up boxing gloves was like 16 inches in circumference. But when the firefighters started doing that league, they used a 12-inch ball currently today in diameter. Yeah. So currently today, 10 to 12-inch balls are used. Okay. So the current ball, but many Chicagoans hold fast to the belief that a real softball is played with a 16-inch ball. So games use these 16-inch balls are often referred to as cabbage ball. And the fielders don't wear mitts. All right. Because they're like, you're catching a beach ball almost, Well,
I've seen those old, there's old, like,
isn't that great?
There's these vintage baseball leagues. They don't use a glove either. They're like, I love watching those games. Man.
So there you go.
No, that's cool, man. And anybody wants to look up some other softball, some other cool stories that are totally off the subject of this is the King in His Court. There's a softball. Anybody that's maybe never heard of the King in His Court, it was Eddie Feigner. Okay, Eddie Feigner. I do a lot of outside baseball, of course, research. Mention that on the show here and there. But Eddie Feigner is regarded by many as the greatest pitcher in any sport. Baseball, softball, doesn't matter. Eddie Feigner what he did was he was called the King in His Court because Eddie Feigner, he would pitch, he would be him as the pitcher. Right. He would have a catcher, and then he would have a shortstop and one outfielder. Okay. So he'd have 4 guys, including him, on the field. All right. And he would take on he would travel the country taking on the best softball teams that anybody wanted to play against them. And they won virtually every game. And he's regarded as the greatest pitcher regardless of sport. And to sort of prove that, he went into there was a 1960, I think it was a 1968 celebrity softball game.
Okay.
And so there was all these, like, he was on the celebrity team, and then there was all these, it was celebrities versus major leaguers. So he came into the game and pitched against, it was like Willie Mays, Willie McCovey, I forget all of them, Harmon Killebrew.
Yeah.
Like all the, like, it was like 6 of the best major leaguers of all time. And he struck every one of them out in a row. Everyone out in a row.
It's a different pace. It throws off.
Yeah.
It throws off.
He struck every one of them out in a row.
The ball drops different, flies different, and it's a different speed, and they just can't do it.
But anybody wants to dive into an interesting story, maybe at some point, because he's not really a Detroit. He's come to Michigan and Detroit before, but anybody that's never heard of Eddie Feigner, the King in His Court, look him up. Because there's all kinds of YouTube videos, and I've got if you ever want to read something amazing, read his book, The Art of Pitching. Okay. Because when you, like, for me, like I say, I do all this alternative baseball theory, and his alternative baseball theory on pitching is, like, it should be incorporated into actual Major League Baseball doctrine because it's fascinating. He has a practice target, almost like a deer hunting target, where it's like you set it up against a wall, and it's got 2 batters on either side of the plate, and then like a target. And he's like basically, if you paint this on a wall and you pitch at this and you practice pitching, there's a red spot on either side of the, there's 2 different batters, a lefty and a righty, in a red zone. And he's like, if you learn how to hit that target every single time, whether it's softball or baseball, he's like, you'll win like every game. He's like, you'll be one of the best pitchers ever. And he's like, there's games that's the only spot that I throw a ball all game, and I just get every single person out. They cannot touch the ball there. And so and what's interesting is that Eddie Feigner, this is the level of brilliance he had. There was a player that was like sort of up and coming in the King in His Court, because he's always like bringing up new players. And the one guy there was like his understudy, the guy that would like pitch for him every once in a while. The guy that was like the second best guy on that team. They did an experiment in 1971. And Eddie Feigner documents this in one of his books. And it's not in any other Major League history book. You can only read it in Eddie Feigner's book. But anyways, they did an experiment in spring training where the goal was to convert a softball pitcher into baseball to test out. Because there is a history before Eddie Feigner, including Eddie Feigner, and after Eddie Feigner, all the way up to women pitchers that are making major league players look foolish. Jenny Finch has made numerous major leaguers look foolish. And so what they wanted to try an experiment. It was in 1971, and the Eddie Feigner's understudy in 6 weeks, they converted him to pitching baseballs, underhanded, just like a softball pitcher. And so in 6 weeks they converted him into a baseball pitcher for spring training. His final appearance, he pitched against a AAA New York Mets team, and he pitched 6 scoreless, 6 shutout innings. Wow. Against a AAA team, and the Phillies won that game, and he got cut afterwards. They never even brought him in. But so that that's the idea is that was the closest there's ever been to an experiment about converting softball pitchers into baseball, and that's one of my theories is that it's like sort of an experimental thing I'd love to try in baseball sometime, is to find some of these elite softball pitchers and actually give them that opportunity. Because the thing about it is
convert,
because it's besides just having like a different, we just found this talent where there was none previously, a new wellspring of talent. What's interesting about softball pitchers is that they can pitch every day. Yeah. There's virtually there are very few arm injuries in softball. They can pitch every single day. Yeah. You can have like one guy that's like your pitching staff every single day. You can bring him in as much as you want. They don't even have any. And nowadays you have these arm injuries that ravage people's lives. Like they get blow out their elbows every other game. And so that's what I mean is like, they're like, they throw underhand, but some of the best pitchers of all time have thrown underhand. There's been guys that are just like these underhanded One of my favorites is a guy named Iron Man McGinnity. He was an early 1900s guy. He used to pitch like every single game. He'd pitch double headers and freaking go 9 innings every game and be one of the best pitchers of all time.
Matt Stafford? Oh, no, that's sidearm.
No,
that's sidearm. Yeah. That's sidearm.
No, this is Iron Man McGinnity. That's another great story if anybody ever wants to look up Iron Man McGinnity. He's got some great stories too. And he like that guy used to pitch every single game. He'd throw like 400 innings a year.
Something that's unconventional. People poo-poo it.
Yeah.
Because Stafford was all about that sidearm, and everybody was just like, it would just complain about him. And Detroiters would complain about him, and commentators would complain about him. And now that sidearm
with like Patrick Mahomes
is like common practice in the end.
Well, it's just about getting it done. It's be like that in baseball too. Like,
but he was doing it. He was kind of doing that, and that was kind of his jam. It was unconventional, and so it got poo-pooed.
Yeah.
And then they're like, oh, well, actually, he's kind of successful.
The underarm, there's baseball's a long history of employing underarm and sidearm, and they call them submariners is what they call the underarm pitchers. But there's always this negative connotation to them. They're never viewed as like he's just a fluke guy, whatever.
Yeah.
But it's just a coincidence that like virtually every single submariner that comes up that pitches with an underarm delivery are like just elite. They're like in every case. In every case. Like, I mean, it's like you see these guys and it's just one after another that are these elite pitchers all the way back to Iron Man McGinnity. And if you look up his career, his was extraordinary.
Yeah.
He's one of the most Iron McGinnity's career is one of the most extraordinary pitching careers you'll ever see, and he was a pure underarm guy. He threw like 400 innings a year. Like he would just he would pitch a double header and pitch all 9 innings of a double header. And they're like, oh, that was back in the 1900s where they didn't like care about arm injuries or whatever. It's like, that may be the case, but that he pitched for like 25 years.
Right.
Like,
yeah, he was a monster. Yeah.
He pitched like 25 years. It's like, what do you mean he didn't care about arm injuries? He didn't have any.
Yeah.
Because he pitched underhand. Like in this day and age where there's just rampant injuries, maybe it's worth a shot. So,
all right, but congratulations again to the Dixie Oils.
Yeah, Dixie.
Power to pass.
Yeah.
Detroit City of Champions. Subscribe, leave a comment, do all the podcast things in all the podcast places. Wearingfunny.com, you can get the very, very cool Detroit City of Champions t-shirts are available there. That's coming soon to a whiskey bottle near you. Just saying, I'm going to pitch
put out positive energy into the universe.
I'm pitching that till it happens.
Put it out in the universe.
It's that
positive vibes in the universe.
I want to drink Detroit City Distillery,
City of Champions,
City of Champions bourbon out of the Stanley Cup. That is my mission for April 18th.
The Wings got to win it, though. You can't drink it out of some other team winning the Cup.
The Wings won it in 35. All the names are on there.
Yeah,
that's the one I'm toasting to.
You got to go.
That's the one I'm toasting to.
The one they won is in the Hall of Fame. It's the vintage Cup. It's not the one they have now.
I know. Yeah. So the top part is not.
You got to get either the original or the Wings of today have to win it, and we can drink it out of it then. But you can't see the Bruins or somebody win it and we're like, hey, could you bring a pass to Detroit so we can drink out of the cup? You got to have the Detroit team do it, dude.
Yeah, well,
it wouldn't be right otherwise.
No, it's going to happen.
Well, no, it's fine. We can dream for that to happen, but we can't be like, hey, could you do a side tour through,
No,
Tampa Bay win it, and they bring Tampa Bay up here for us just to drink a sip. No, the Red Wings got to do it.
Well, April, the season's not over yet. The Cup tours are out.
No, but if the Red Wings do it, I'll drink. I'm not drinking out of it unless it's the Detroit team.
You don't have to drink out of it. I'm going to.
You're not going to either.
I know. I'm going. Oh, I am.
No, not if it's not the Wings that win.
Yes, it is. The Wings name is on there.
Yeah, but dude, the Wings got to win it. You can't just have. That's like fair. That's not right, dude.
We'll agree that you're wrong.
You're wrong.
We'll agree to disagree. I
don't think the viewers that's a viewer poll. The viewers can weigh in and whether that's appropriate. We're a Detroit sports show. And you're gonna drink
their name.
You're gonna drink Detroit liquor out of some other team winning the cup.
I am toasting 1935. That's the year. And
we'll toast it out of a 1935 glass or one of our glasses. You can't toast out of somebody else's championship trophy.
Well, theoretically was the real one is in the Hall of Fame.
Then drink it out of that one.
Well, if they bring that one, I would.
Well, you got to. The thing is, if you're going to set an objective, you got to set it to the.
Oh, that's high. I don't think they're going to pull that. Well, and I don't think they let us drink out.
Well,
of that
look, we got to get our viewership up, don't we?
Yeah.
We got to become a bigger and better show.
I don't think they let us drink out of that one.
If we had enough people interested in us doing that, then maybe that would be a possibility. Maybe it's a possibility. Or if the Red Wings of today win the cup, then that's another possibility. But the thing about it is that when every type of a quest or anything like this, you have to. It can't be easy to accomplish. You can't just go, hey, by the way, bring the Stanley Cup through here so Jamie take a sip out of it. It has to be associated with our victory aura. You see what I'm saying? It can't just be a random. Like the freaking Ohio Blue Jackets win.
I entirely disagree. I entirely disagree with you. I don't care who was the last team to win it. I don't care who the last team to win it. I care that the 35 Wings are on there, and that's who I'm toasting.
They're not. Yeah, I don't even. That's
who I'm toasting. I don't care. I do not care who the last team was that won it. I'm toasting. I'm toasting 35.
I can see
with
that
the Stanley Cup. That they won.
I can see that case.
That's my.
Well, why don't you just go get a miniature Stanley Cup off the internet then?
Well, because it's a replica anyway.
Yeah, go
ahead. The
one
one that's coming through on the.
They sell little miniature cups and then drink it out of that. Well, what's the difference of drinking somebody else's Stanley Cup? The Red Wings are engraved on a miniature facsimile.
No. That's
the same thing.
There's
no victory,
but it's not the official. It's not the official Stanley. It is their victory.
Whose?
The Wings, the 35
Their name
Wings.
is on the facsimile on the one you buy off eBay. It's the same thing.
It's
the same fake ass cup. You got to get a real cup.
Agree to disagree.
One imbued by
by
two different types of spirits. One, either the original cup. That's the first type of victory spirit, because that's the cup that it was originally engraved on.
Yeah.
Or two, the victory spirit of today's Red Wings, imbued with their victory aura in the current cup for us to drink out of there. Those are to me, those are the only two possibilities. We can put a poll up for our viewers to weigh in.
But I just say I don't care who won it last. I'm toasting the 35.
Then get a fake replica cup. What's the difference? Because our team didn't win it this year or have any victory aura imbibed in it. That's the thing. Just go get yourself
the aura has been there since 1935.
Get yourself a fake Stanley Cup with a little handle on it, like a mug, like a beer mug handle on it, because it'll say the Red Wings on that one too.
Oh,
if you don't care about victory aura,
you're so contentious.
You don't care about victory aura, so just get a fake ass cup, man, with a beer mug handle on it. Just get a fake cup. It'll tide you over.
It'd have to be a really tiny one so we can do shots out of it.
There you can do that too. You can open the top of it and there's like a little shot glass in it that's like a little mini Stanley Cup, like one of those little Russian dolls.
All right, there you go. Like, subscribe, leave a comment, all the podcast things and all the podcast places. Thanks for hanging out. We truly appreciate you being with us. And Charles... This got more contentious.
Yeah, comment below which person you agree with.
Chris will 3D print us a Stanley Cup to drink out.
That can be you, because you don't care about the victory aura. You care about
the aura is there, and
you care more about the drinking out of the cup than about the victory aura imbued into the cup itself.
I think you're wrong.
I don't think so, because I want it to be either the original cup or a cup won by the Red Wings that we drink out of.
Oh, that would be great.
That's it.
So the cup came. We were DJing, and there was a bar called Lipsticks, and they showed up with a Stanley Cup. A handful of the Red Wings were like out partying with it. Yeah, they showed up with the cup at the bar.
I sold books next to it. My first year selling books. There's a bar that was a local bar in Port Huron that had the cup, and we were selling books there.
We're talking about that. They got cranky about that.
Yeah, they
too.
kicked us out. They're like, trying to make money selling books next to the cup. I'm like, well, it's at a bar too. Like they're like, you're trying to make money by selling books next to the Stanley Cup, and I'm like, yeah, well, why is it in a bar then? Like, what's the bar trying to do? How much did the bar pay you for bringing the cup here to just sit there in the middle of their bar? And they're like, and the guy's like, that's different. Or I'm like, I don't see how. I'm like, the bar sold me. They're letting me sell books here, and they're bringing in extra traffic due to the fact that the cup is sitting here. So what's the difference? I'm not selling books because of the cup. I'm here. There's extra traffic in this bar because of the attention the cup's getting. And they're like, you can't sell books anywhere near the cup. And I'm like, I'm talking about 35, man.
Yeah.
It's not like it's not like I'm hawking soap on our ropes. You know what I mean? Like, cut me some slack here, man. I'm trying to bring back the greatest season ever. It's been completely forgotten.
Help.
Yep. He's like, no, it's like I'm selling like glow sticks or something. You know?
All right, everybody. Thank you for being with us once again. Like, subscribe, all the podcast things in the podcast places, and we'll do it all again. Very, very. This was episode 99.
We're one away.
This was 99. I don't know. We got to figure out something for 100. So we gotta. I don't know what we're doing.
We'll figure something out.
But thanks for being here through these 99 episodes.
99, dude.
And we will be back with number 100 if Charles and I don't murder each other over the Stanley Cup argument here.
So. I think we can let the viewers.
Good. I think we're good.
I'm fine with it. And the viewers, you make a solid case for your end, and the viewers can decide it by weighing in with their own comments. And
I'm
interested.
Put a poll
out. Put a poll out.
I totally see your point.
Yeah, I see yours.
But you're wrong.
Well, but I'm not. See, I'm letting the viewers. See, you're not supposed.
We'll let it.
You're supposed to let the viewers say because it gives people something to weigh in on.
Right. No, yeah, that'll be cool. But episode 100, I don't know what we're gonna do. We got to do something. So 100, we got to plan. We'll plan for that.
Yeah.
And but thank you for being here and joining with us for these first 99. And like bottles of beer, there'll be 99 more to come.
Yeah.
So at least.
Yeah.
So thank you, and we'll see y'all soon. It's DetroitCityOfChampions.com. And yep, have a good one.